Here it is. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flux Bug Scrub number 7. We've narrowed down the list of issues today with to focus mostly on things that are in the image automation umbrella. For people who are new to the Bug Scrub format, this spreadsheet here is an export of all of the issues from Flux's GitHub organization across all of the repositories, and we filtered down just to be able to focus on something. We usually focus on something different each bug scrub, and sorted them by a rough number around staleness. So this is like a composite of how old is the issue and how long has it been since anyone's touched it. There's a little formula here from some hidden columns. So usually what I will ask is that one of the other volunteers who's joined me will take the reins sort of this spreadsheet. Chris, I don't know if you, I'm going to put you on the spot, but if you're interested, would you share your screen with this spreadsheet? I'm not sure if you found the link already.
I do not have the link, but if you want to share it out, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, so for people who are trying to join the Flux Bug Scrub, you should usually find the thread in the Flux contributors channel. And here is the link in the Zoom chat. And if I stop sharing, then you should be able to share. Okay.
Sure.
And we're just going to go through this list of issues and try to knock out as many as we can. And by knock out, really all I mean is we're just going to discuss the issues. We're going to look for missing labels. I have the triage role across the organization. So if there are any labels we want to apply, or if there are any issues we want to close because they're done, then we can close them. And if there are any next actions we'd like to recommend, we can write them down in this column or write them directly on the issue. And that's pretty much how this event goes.
All right, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
All right.
Okay. So usually we want to do this with some kind of order. Let's say we're going to filter everything down to only issues in the range 1.5 staleness to 4. I think that's a good range for this list. So let me apply that filter here real quick. Now the list should be a little bit shorter. And if you want, we can start at the top or the bottom.
So I still see a stale age of 3.9.
Yep. The filter is between 1.5 and 4. So.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yep. So that should get rid of everything that's very old and everything that's very new. The logic there being, if it's new, it might not need much attention, and we probably shouldn't spend much time on it because it's still new. It might get closed on its own.
Okay.
So if you would like to just pick any issue that looks interesting to you and click through the link so that we can.
Well, let's pick an issue that's interesting that you feel might be interesting. I'm still pretty green at this.
Okay. Sule, how about you? Is there one that jumps out at you right away?
Not really like this.
Let's pick one that doesn't have a status over here. So it'll be something that we haven't already looked at in the previous bug scrub.
So we want to filter that down?
No, let's keep the filter the way it is, I think.
Okay.
And maybe one other thing that would be good to filter. This is mostly for issues. We can do PRs if we really have someone who's qualified to review the PR, but I'm just going to take the PRs out of the list for now because I don't feel qualified to judge any code in the image automation controller. So we're just going to look at issues today.
How about source controller gets stuck?
Yeah, that sounds like a good one. Let's click through.
So just follow the link.
Yep, just follow the link. It should open in a new tab. And just be aware we're recording will be posted to YouTube, so if there's anything sensitive, we could edit it out, but there shouldn't be. This is all open source stuff, so. Okay. Source controller getting stuck. So we have AKS clusters running the same version of Flux 16.1 in two different regions. Both clusters are syncing the same Azure DevOps Git repo. Everything is working great in one region, but in another region gets stuck several times a day. Okay, and the monitoring shows that there are gaps where the sources are not reconciling. And it looks like the last report was about 17 days ago. Someone said, yes, we also see this issue. I'm going to give it a bug label. I'm not sure how to follow this up exactly. But even if we don't have anything that we can really do to the issue, it's good to get to see these things so we can know what kind of problems people are running into and just get a little bit more familiar with. We only have an hour for this meeting, so.
Okay. And so,
yeah, sorry, Chris.
Oh, go ahead.
Interest, why do we have two implementation, Git Go Git and GitLib 2?
Good question. There is a specific reason, and I'm afraid I will get it wrong. But I know for one thing, libgit2 is a cgit implementation, and gogit is obviously in Go. So the reason why it's important that we use libgit in some places is because, it's important that we use gogit for cross-platform compatibility, because we'd like to be able to compile a Flux binary that can do Bootstrap on Windows and on Linux and Mac. And I'm not sure that they figured out how to do gogit. That they figured out how to do C bindings for Windows exactly. So whether libgit2 is usable in Windows or not, I'm not sure. But if only the daemon has to use the C binding, then we can always guarantee that it'll run on Linux, and we don't need to care about that. So I know the reason why the Bootstrap only supports GoGit providers. I do not know if there is a reason why we need both. Although one reason is mentioned here in this issue, that Azure DevOps only works with the C implementation. So that's why there's no Bootstrap for Azure DevOps, for among other reasons, maybe. Because if you were to go to the documentation and look at how do you start using Azure DevOps, we lost our screen share, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
In the Azure DevOps doc for Flux, it explains that you can't use the built-in Bootstrap functionality, and it goes into detail about how to do that stuff by hand. So we don't really highlight that because we don't really want users to do everything by hand. And people are usually pretty resistant to use Bootstrap. Just off the street, they don't want to give some random CLI access to their cluster, but it's the easiest way. and there's a lot to learn about Flux. So let's move on to another issue. And I'll give this one a little note here.
I've got our screen sharing back,
Great, thank you.
and I randomly picked the next issue.
Awesome. Not
Yeah.
respecting path, I see.
I was asking about the two implementation because I've noticed more issues regarding libgit 2 than gogit.
Yeah. I think that they would really like for GoGit to be strong enough to do everything. And I think that there are some things that it still can't do. I'm not sure what those things are, but I'm not sure which way that will go because I think I've even heard talk that we might, at some point we might want to use the Git CLI itself because that is really the reference implementation for Git. And there are so many bugs in the Git clients that we've been using, but I don't know. That's not something that's really in my purview to decide. So
I think I've read somewhere that we don't want to shell out.
we don't want to shell out. That's exactly right. Yeah. So that would be the main reason why we probably wouldn't do that. But if it comes to it, that might be somewhere we shell out.
Thanks, Kingan.
So image update automation not respecting path 22 days ago. And this is for the V1 Alpha 2 resources I see. So maybe there were some bugs fixed. And that's actually the response that Stefan wrote. And nobody answered back. So I think that we can close this one. Or I'm just going to leave a note on it, I think, and say if I'll leave a note and close it. I don't think there's much to say about this unless anyone has questions. There were bugs fixed. Chris, you might not know enough history to have context about what V1 beta 1 of image automation is versus V1 alpha 2. Stop me if you've already heard this one. But the beta APIs coincide with the API stability release. So if you look at the Flux milestone roadmap and the recent history and the migration timetable, you can see there that one of the milestones is API stability, and that was in June that was reached. So when the APIs are promoted to beta, the implication of that is that you can adopt these APIs and use them in your infrastructure, and we guarantee that there's some compatibility moving forward. So as there are new beta releases, your beta resources will be transparently upgraded. I think this is the same guarantee that we get from Kubernetes itself. And then if you have beta resources and a resource API graduates to general availability, then there will be a path to upgrade your beta resources automatically to the V1 resource or V2, whatever we call it.
Yeah, you have to change the conversion type. You have to permit the conversion type and also well, specifically, I think, if I remember well, you have to provide a webhook that is telling you how to do conversion for the fields that are not present on your specific version.
So do you mean that the semantic versioning goes to 1.0.0?
Not exactly, because the semantic versioning is per project, right? So there's the Flux CLI that has a version 0.16.2 or something like that. And then underneath that, there are all of the controllers that also have their own release version. And under that, there's the CRD that has its own release version. So CRDs don't really use semantic versioning because they have to be a little bit more stable than that. You're allowed to make breaking changes from one alpha release to the next, but once you reach beta, you should not be making breaking changes anymore. So this is a stronger API level guarantee than the guarantees you would get as an end user from Semver from a specific controller or CLI binary.
Okay, I think I follow you.
Okay, so let's pick another one.
All right, start at the top.
Set observed generation under condition ready. Does anyone know about this?
I think this is being worked on, as it is telling you, with the new package runtime condition helpers. He's also giving an example of how to set the observed generation to the condition ready. And I think with the new controller refactoring, this is being done.
Okay. I lost track of where we are. We said we started at the top. Okay.
Yep, I've jumped us back up to the top, Kingdom.
Okay.
Next.
Yep.
All right.
Failed to clone Git repository. Now I've just seen a discussion like this happening on the Flux contributors channel, I think, or maybe in Pound Flux. But this one is a bit older. So what do you think? Is this a bug or is this a enhancement request here? Feature.
I don't think we have enough information on that one, because maybe just not use HTTPS actually.
HTTPS,
I think
yeah.
we need more information on that one.
So I'm gonna file it under Git, I guess. Is this a Git and also enhancement? Because I don't think we generally want to support HTTP2, but I don't know why or why not. I'm just going to label it. We can move on. Repository not found, invalid. Yeah, okay. This Yebian is me, by the way. I'm also Yebian on GitHub.
Pardon?
This person who responded here to the issue is also me. That's just my alter ego on GitHub.
Hmm.
So I think this is a bug. It looks like the core issue is that it doesn't really tell you that the submodule failed. So
Next issue.
okay. The current implementation of the commit message template relies on text template with no extra functions. This looks like a great issue that we just need someone to work on.
So what do we do about this one? It's already tagged by Stefan as an enhancement.
Well, if there's no one who feels like taking this on, well, there's not much we can do. Unless there was, unless someone wants to ask this person whether they want to do the implementation or if they're waiting for someone else to do it, that would be something we can do.
I can work on it actually.
If you're interested, yeah, let's,
Yeah.
cool. Okay. If you write on that issue, by the way, I can actually assign it to you. I just can't assign issues to people unless they've commented on them.
Okay, I do that.
Okay. Auth for HTTPS not found. Oh, I think this is fine to close. I'm just going to close it. Oh, oh, I remember seeing this one before. I think that is an external issue.
Yeah, it does say locked upstream.
Does it have a tag already? I didn't see. Blocked upstream. Yeah, it does. And that linked issue is, looked like it's been merged.
so this one can be closed.
Well, that's an outside issue that's been merged, so.
Next issue.
Sounds good.
All right.
It's happening too frequently after V1 alpha 2. So the question is this issue still affecting us now with V1 beta 1? I'm just going to write that and ask for status update.
Okay. Next up, 165.
Support SHA pinning. So I think I've read this before. Might take you guys a minute. Do we think this sounds like a good first issue? I'm going to mark it that way. Unless anyone, it's really not. Okay.
All right, issue 181.
So I haven't been keeping up very well here because I'm trying to follow up the previous one as we move on to the next one.
Sorry, yeah.
If anyone wants to read out loud, that would be really helpful, or whatever.
Sure.
Whatever. So we have some
Sure.
dialogue.
So it's
about what's
issue
going on here.
181, add message to log output showing reconcile attempt. It says currently the controller does not show any message when a reconciliation attempt is made, but there is no action. This made me wonder if the reconciliation loop was somehow broken. It would be helpful to have a message on each attempt, such as done by the image reflector controller. Squaremo responded with that there are many more reconciliations than there are actions taken. So there's no useful signal in logging when a reconciliation is run and has no effect. Or put another way. Go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of agree with him, because you can, even though, let's say you have an object and there's a reconciliation of the object, when there is something to do, and then this is logged accordingly. But sometimes it is a reconciliation just because of the dependency, on other objects, as are nothing being done actually. So I think it would be too verbose, if you may say, to have a log at every reconciliation attempt.
Could you have it set by a verbosity level?
Wow.
I think what we're saying is this makes sense as part of a status. What have we been calling this in our side effect of our great refactoring that we're doing right now for all of the controllers? One of the things that we want to improve along the way is that we pay close attention to, and I know it's something bigger than status. I'm not sure it's called status. It's something else. I haven't been in a lot of these controller reconciliation meetings lately. I can't remember what it's called for the life of me right now. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about the events that are being reported?
Yeah, they're not just events though. There's the events and there's the condition. That's the word I'm looking for.
Conditions, yeah.
Conditions, yeah. So maybe
Yeah, the current work, the current ongoing work.
It makes sense to have a condition for a commit was applied and doesn't have any status update.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Well, I think having a condition makes sense that an object status is changing on different condition types. But here, what she wants is logging, I think, actually, that's just to make sure that something is happening. And so what Squaremo is saying about debugging level log makes sense, I think. But on a normal...
You're right, yeah.
Yeah? Good.
That does make sense to me, now that you explain it that way. Like you could use a condition for while the update is in progress, but it doesn't really make sense for that kind of granularity of status information, like instantaneous status note. Nothing.
And we have a condition that is called reconciling or stealth already that have been implemented, I think. We already have this information.
So I think maybe it's a debug message rather than an info message. Sounds like a good first issue.
All right, I'm going to close this tab and move on to the next one.
Okay.
I think that don't you think that on our controller implementation, when we are logging, don't we have already the back level logging information?
What's the question again?
Don't we have already, when with the logger on the controller, when we are logging, are we not logging anything for the back level?
I think that there is a debug level and that you need to change the configuration of the controller at startup with a patch to pass in an option for log level in order to get extremely verbose output information. But I'm not sure because I know that's a knob and we might not want people to have to exercise knobs. And you have that Flux Log CLI. So I don't know whether it makes sense to put it at a level that wouldn't normally be output, or to just don't display it at the client. I'm not really sure the nitty-gritty technical details of how does the log stuff work. I've only really used it as a end user. But I think we want to be careful about making too much noise in the logs in general, because they probably get consumed by something, and then they have to be stored, and the storage has cost. I know Stackdriver is a super cost concern for people who use Google's log. I think it's called Stackdriver. Log Slurper. Image markers are not usable with configuration transpilers. I see. So do we need to talk about what this issue is? Or Chris, have you seen this notation before, this image policy notation? I'm not sure how deep into
I haven't.
you've gotten.
Just for full disclosure, this is my 4th day. So this is all pretty green to me.
It's perfectly acceptable to not have seen the most difficult feature of Flux on your 4th day. So what this image policy tag is for, there's a collection of objects that you create to work in concert. One is called image update automation. And then there's another one called image policy, and a third called image repository. And what this does is you put this tag, it's called a KYAML setter tag, and it just identifies a place in the YAML file where this image policy that's named should be applied. So that means that when the image update automation scans the path that it's configured to scan, so it usually focuses on just a subtree of the repository, maybe where all the cluster YAMLs are kept. It looks to see, according to the image policy, what's the latest image for this policy, and it overwrites the value, and it just commits it back to the repo and pushes it up. So so this is a little bit more complicated than what we did in Flux v1, but if you weren't a Flux v1 user, don't really need to talk about that too much. So so the problem is that when you use something like JSON to generate YAML for Flux to apply, or if it even if it was JSON, the output, it will not preserve your comments because they don't parse, and they're not, just like Kubernetes. When you apply a YAML file with comments to the cluster, the comments are immediately lost at that point. They don't follow the apply operation into the cluster. So I don't know if that means there's anything that we can do about this. I don't really want to close it because I'd like to have a good answer for how you do those kind of things, and I'm not sure that there's one in the thread yet. For another point of reference for what how you can understand how this would work, there is a guide for Flux on the Flux Guides website that describes how you can use something like JSON and have it commit back to a branch. So in the previous version of Flux, you could run JSON inline. So maybe your Flux source had some JSON source in it, and you wanted that to be applied as YAML to the cluster. And like Sule said, we don't want to shell out to other binaries anymore because of security concerns. So we cannot do that anymore. And the workaround that's suggested is that you should do it in CI. And so if you have some input, just like you would do it in a build stage, you run make or whatever it is, and it has output that goes somewhere, and that gets committed back into the repo, maybe on a separate branch called deploy or something like that. So there's a guide for that if you want to go down a really deep rabbit hole. That's probably the biggest and longest guide on the Flux docs website, but that's for another day. I think I'm going to put a label on this and let's move on.
All right, we were just on 134, right? 381.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that sounds right.
That looks right.
Okay.
I think he's referring to the fact that when he's checking with kubectl or Flux for a repository, the last reconciliation, the message, the status that he has is to fetch revision with the SHA of the commit, and he wants the message as well, I think. And they are pointing him to the notification controller.
So this is different than a templated thing. This is actually changing the metadata structure so that it includes some new information.
Yeah, he's marked it as an enhancement. Step-on has.
Okay,
So leave this one be.
I think we can leave this one be.
All right, the 159's up.
Okay. Ooh. So I'm not sure what there is to follow up here. I see that someone had an issue with image automation and it looks like they fixed it. And the UX issue that remains is that it was very difficult. And I have heard this before. Difficult to know why that constellation of image update automation, image policy, why those things aren't working together when you think you've set them up correctly and they don't seem to generate a commit when you think they should. So this, yeah, this comment on June 18th here is the big one that you have on your screen right now. On mine, it says June 19th. And I think that. This is the documentation update we need. I think I'm going to take this one. And I'll follow this up because I have an issue open somewhere to update the documentation around this stuff. But the bottom line there where it says can only refer to Git repository in the same namespace, can only get image policy in the same namespace. This is confusing for a lot of people because they'd like their image automation to live in the same namespace as their app, for example. And it makes sense until you note that the Git repository reference is only used for its secret. So if the Git repository is not in the same namespace, you cannot read from that secret because you have a service account, and your service account for your tenant can only read, well, forget the service account. Flux is not designed to read secrets across namespaces in this way. And I think that might change at some point, but I'm not sure how soon. So we need to document it in the meantime. So I'll follow this one up.
All right, we got 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Issue 180.
Okay.
Images are not fetched.
So is this person trying to include, I think this is another documentation update. And it looks like I'm the last person who responded to this one, so I'm going to take this one too. All right, so I think we're out of time. Thank you both for joining today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, likewise.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.